the fear of abandonment and the thoughts that sustain it. There is no worse wound than being abandoned. Those who have experienced it in their childhood or at some point in their past often develop a mental focus that further reinforces their fear and also stalls their relationships. Those who experience a fear of abandonment develop a series of behaviors that end up becoming sad self-fulfilling prophecies. Anticipating rejection and obsessing over abandonment leads to exaggerated attitudes and reactions, which in all likelihood end up driving partners away. After all, there is no worse enemy than fear. There is also no worse wound than being abandoned. There are many people who did not receive adequate emotional and physical protection in their childhood. In fact, it is not necessary for the parents to be absent for a child to feel alone and helpless. It is a fact that growing up without the kind of love that protects, guides, and provides security is extremely harmful to human development. There are also those who have often been abandoned by their romantic partners. In these cases, a kind of corrosive shame can develop along with a tremendous fear that the event will happen again. Also, they may feel, quite wrongly, of course, that there is something wrong with them and that they are not worthy of being loved. The experience of being abandoned in childhood leads to the development of an almost pathological need for others to take care of us. Today, we know that many people with borderline personality disorder have suffered from the trauma of being abandoned in their childhood. 5 thoughts that contribute to fear of abandonment. The fear of abandonment is a disturbing element present in the minds of those who once felt the weight of loneliness, lack of love. In fact, this anxiety almost always has its origins in childhood. A study conducted by Arizona State University claimed that, having witnessed their parents' relational conflict and subsequent separation, children often develop this fear. Furthermore, in recent years it has also become clear how clinical realities, such as borderline personality disorder, also trigger fear of being abandoned. Additionally, suffering from neglect, such as lack of emotional attachment from caregivers, as well as certain forms of abuse, lays the foundation for this clinical condition. The imprint left by not feeling loved, cared for and protected is devastating to the brain. It causes a person to reach adulthood with an almost compulsive need to be looked after by others. In fact, it is an almost biological impulse that favors the development of dependent bonds. If these bonds involve fear of betrayal or abandonment, it leads to problematic behavior. This behavior is motivated by a mind dominated by certain thought cycles. They are a series of clearly dangerous mindsets that constantly orchestrate the fear of abandonment. People with an anxious attachment tend to constantly experience fear of abandonment and rejection. 1. They think they will never find the love they need. Sometimes in a relationship, those who fear abandonment have a feeling that the partner is not right for them. However, this is usually because they fail to fill their emptiness, calm their fears, or satisfy their voracious emotional needs. This is because they have previously been abandoned. People who fear abandonment crave affection. Nevertheless, nothing and no one manages to be the long-awaited reinforcement. No love is enough. No person, no matter how hard they try, will be able to satisfy their need for love. It is because there is a trauma behind the void. 2. The feeling of being unimportant. When you feel a fear of being abandoned, I am alone and no one cares about me. These are the kinds of harmful and destructive mental discourses that are a constant in the person who fears abandonment. Again, it doesn't matter if the person has a good support network. Their wounds from the past act as an internal devaluing factor. They actually form a layer of negativity which prevents them from seeing the genuine affection, care of others. Behind the fear of being abandoned is usually unprocessed trauma, Psychological therapy is the best solution. How to reduce fear of abandonment. Fear of abandonment is a constant feeling of insecurity. This sensation provokes the emergence of all sorts of very harmful mental scenarios. Intrusive thoughts appear along with feelings of emptiness, anxious attachment and mood swings. Not surprisingly, they lead to unhappy and failed relationships. In order to achieve well-being and healthier relationships, those who fear abandonment must stop seeing themselves as flawed people who lack something and start recognizing themselves as perfect people. People who are worthy of loving themselves and being loved. However, this requires psychotherapeutic and professional support. They need to understand their past and reasons for their fear of abandonment. They need to understand their behavior. Above all, they must understand the thought patterns that reinforce their fears. They must develop a healthier mental and emotional perspective. It should include appropriate self-esteem and confidence. They need to work on their inner dialogue, turn off their critical voice and awaken their ability to speak compassionately to themselves. As resilient adults, they will be able to cradle and heal the wounded parts of themselves. Self-love and self-confidence will be their best allies in achieving this.